my name is Bria Brown, and today I will be having a discussion with the Lake Orion Superintendent, Marion Janopoulos, and a parent in the community, Josh Mermel, and we're going to be talking about the Lake Orion Sinking Fund proposal. Thank you guys for being here with me today.
Thank you, Bria, to have us so that we can keep our community informed as best possible with this important election that's coming up. And I'm very excited that Josh, as a parent, is going to participate in this communication.
So can you give me a little bit more about your background, and then Josh, you can follow up?
Sure. I've been the superintendent in Lake Orion for 7 years already. Prior to that, I was superintendent in a neighboring district in Oxford schools. I've been in a number of school districts around the state, and these kinds of issues of funding schools and funding capital improvements have been something that I have been involved with for many years. So I'm very excited to be in Lake Orion. We have great kids, great staff, great parents, and great community.
Now, Josh, can you give me a...
Sure. So I was born and raised in Lake Orion, and went to Weber Elementary, and my parents were really active in the school district. And my mom ended up acting as the substance abuse prevention coordinator for the school district for many years, and then graduated, married my high school sweetheart, who also was a Lake Orion graduate. Now we have 2 kids, a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and my 6-year-old son is also finishing his kindergarten year at Weber. So it's full circle.
Wow, so you know the Lake Orion School District very well.
I'd like to think so, and there's a lot of pride, yeah, and it's one of the reasons why I'm here right now and as active as I am.
Okay, so I want to get right into this discussion. Now, for those who don't know, what exactly is a sinking fund, and why is Lake Orion in need of it?
Well, let me just kind of start off, and then Josh jump in at any time. A sinking fund is different than a school bond election. A sinking fund is a limited property tax. It's over a period of time. There's no interest to our community on a sinking fund. What it does is it funds major facility improvements and repairs. You can't use a sinking fund for salaries. You can't use it for general fund kinds of things. It's specifically targeted for your facility, not just maintenance, because we have ongoing maintenance. This is for major repairs and major renovations.
Okay.
What differentiates it from a bond is long-term. A bond has interest. A bond also has a debt attached to it, whereas a sinking fund does not. So it's a way to fund those important and critical needs of a school district.
Okay.
I think one of the questions was, why is it so important? And so from a parent's perspective, and I have to be honest, you know, my wife and I have kind of been out of touch on the school stuff until of recent. And so, you know, I'll tell you why I think it's important, then I'll maybe tell you my process of how I got to where I'm at right now with the whole issue. But home values are a direct correlation to how the school district operates. And so, for example, in my line of business, the company I work for, we buy multifamily residential communities. I've been with them for 10 years now, and we've bought over 200 communities. That's 200 markets, 23 states. And the first thing I do whenever I go to any new market is I meet with 3 different realtors, and the first question I ask is, tell me about the schools. Because I want to know the viability of us being able to sell homes, us being able to fill homes, and the schools are the #1 factor. So this sinking fund, and I think Marion did a great job of explaining, you know, what it is and what it isn't. If we don't maintain the $300 million worth of assets that we have, it sends a critical message to people in the community. It sends to people who may be moving into the community, and there's no question in my mind there's that direct correlation with home values. Some other components of why I think it's very important is I think of recruiting. So there's teachers that are going to be retiring, and there's going to be new teachers coming in. There's administrators that are retiring and new administrators coming in. And Lake Orion is one of the top school districts in Oakland County, and when you look at the bang for the buck that you get for taxes, it's amazing. We need to be able to recruit the best people. If the community is not getting behind their assets and behind the schools, it sends a message to those folks who may have options to go to other, just like families may go to other districts, teachers and administrators might go to other districts. And so there's a lot of intangible value in the community support behind the sinking fund.
And you know, I just kind of want to touch a little bit more on the whole idea of assets. You mentioned that we have over $300 million of assets in this community. And you know, our custodians and our maintenance folks have really done a great job on a day-to-day basis of maintaining those buildings, and they're really in nice shape. But many of our buildings, I think the average age of them is like 43 years old. Some of them, one of our schools is 60-some years old. Over time, systems break down, and so it's critical to be able to finance and repair and renovate roofs, boilers, you know, the HVAC systems and so forth. And our district has been really great about doing some of that with our general fund money. But when you use your general fund money, that money is used normally for your instruction. And since Proposal A passed in the 90s, 94, prior to that, the state gave us money to take care of all of our needs. Since Proposal A, we don't have that luxury. The state really counts on communities to take care of their facility needs through either one of two ways, sinking fund or a bond. And we have made the decision, the conscious decision, to go for the sinking fund in August to take care of our critical needs.
Now, were you going to say
I was
something?
going to add to
Okay.
that. So one of the items that I've been somewhat critical about in the due diligence that I've done on the whole issue is and Marion has been gracious enough to take every call and return every call and, you know, not screen it, even though I've been calling a ton. But as we need really specific details. The voters and the stakeholders want to know, where is this money being spent and what's being done. And so this is, you know, I'm sure the cameras aren't going to be able to see it, but if you go on the Lake Orion Schools website, one of the many attachments that gives a lot of information is a Excel spreadsheet, and I'm an anal type of guy, so this is perfect, but it goes building by building, year by year, category, and it tells you exactly what needs to be done. And I think that this is really good information for the taxpayers and the voters to see, and they can understand exactly what's being spent and what needs to be spent. And again, it's to maintain the assets, you know, and in order to do that, you want to have a good environment for the kids, you want to have a good environment for the teachers, and we've got great assets. I mean, we have a good, beautiful high school, you know, we've got great middle schools and fantastic elementary schools, and so it's just like if you had your own home, you're going to want to make sure that the roof isn't leaking and your hot water heater is working and, you know, different things like that, so you've got a good environment for the students.
And you know, there are a lot of people in this community whose children have either gone through or never had children in the school district. That's a very important component for us to tap into. And they have to understand that the home values certainly improve when your school district is in good shape.
That's correct.
So not only parents like Josh, but also community members who may not have children in the schools.
Now, you were saying that it's going to be on the August ballot.
Correct.
Why is it going to be on the August ballot instead of the November ballot?
Couple reasons.
Okay.
One reason is by doing the election in August, if successful, or maybe I'll just say when successful, I'll make it more positive thinking. When it's successful, that allows us to levy the tax, because this is a tax, after the first of the year, and collect the tax so that we could actually start work in the spring.
Okay.
If we wait until November, we don't have that option. We have to wait like a whole year and a half before we're able to do the work. And then another one is, if it's not successful, we're not going to say that, but I say we go again in November.
Okay.
Okay?
It needs to be successful.
Yeah, it will.
We don't. There's a committee, and we'll talk about it later, that's working on this very hard, and we really need to pass it now, and we really don't need the opportunity cost of another year. You know, and there's one other comment I'd like to make on the point of competitiveness. Again, getting back to, you know, I mean, we have options. I can move my family in whatever district I want. We can go private school. There's a lot of different options. So I looked at who else has passed bonds or sinking funds, you know, recently, and there's a list here. You know, in May of 2015, you know, Berkeley, Birmingham, you know, Farmington, and South Lyon, you know, passed bonds. Rochester passed a bond.
And look at the amount, excuse me for interrupting.
185 million in
$1 million,
Rochester, 131 million in Farmington, 66 million in Birmingham. And these are bonds. So these are, you know, as Marion did a great job of explaining, this isn't a sinking fund.
Right, it's different
this is
from
debt
what you guys
day
are
one
asking.
you're going to be using and so forth. And then districts with sinking funds, I think what's interesting here is I was surprised, and I noticed in the last election, districts like Oak Park, City of Pontiac, Hazel Park, you know, and then there's Avondale, Berkeley, Bloomfield, Clarenceville. But a lot of these districts that, you know, I think rank a little bit differently pass sinking funds. And so, you know, I think the community, and I think Lake Orion's doing this, but has to look at this and say, look what other folks are doing, you know, and it's a necessary tool for exactly what you said under Proposal A. And so we really have to pay attention to that and look around so that we can maintain our competitiveness as a school district.
And now with the concept of choice, people have the choice to go to other school districts. And when you've got a district like Rochester that's passed a $185 million bond to actually really fix up their schools, add technology and so forth, that's competition for us.
Right.
We're losing children as it is. Our enrollment has declined. So it's incumbent on us to maintain our enrollment and certainly to keep our buildings at the best.
Now I'm going to ask you both a question, and you're clearly going to answer differently from Josh. What are you doing to have people in the community well informed about this?
It's not always easy. We have, there are certain restrictions on those of us who are internal employees, and so we have to be very careful about what we do. We can provide as much factual information as possible. We have a website that contains, actually there's a button right there that says Sinking Fund Information. You can click on that and everything you ever wanted to know about a sinking fund, the information that Josh has here with the building projects is on there, what the ballot language is, you know, anything that you want to know. So that's readily available to the public. We're also going out and speaking. We've just started doing that. We have a campaign committee which is outside of my purview, but Josh will talk about that in a minute. But we have our leadership team promoting this with our parents. What we can't do, I can't tell someone to vote yes,
Right.
okay? But I certainly can provide them with information, and that to me is the key. The more information that people have, the better off they are and we are.
So I can tell somebody to vote
Yep.
yes. So it's a little bit different. But I think it's important, and I think this is important for the viewer watching this to understand my process of where I went because and where I've come from. So, you know, when we first started hearing about the issues that Lake Orion was having, my wife and I, we've always voted in every election, and we're very pro-school district, and I'm in real estate, so there's a reason, you know, for that. But we really haven't been paying attention to all the details until up to this point with our son being at Weber. So we start watching some of the school board meetings, and I'll be honest with you, it was nauseating. I mean, my wife had to turn the TV off. You know, we couldn't understand how people weren't communicating with each other, and you can't communicate back and forth, and so, you know, it became very frustrating. So then I said, okay, I need to actually attend some of these school board meetings so I can see what happens off camera, right, and talk to some people beforehand and afterwards. And so I started attending some, and I attended an all-day Saturday meeting. Then I said, I should really go to a coffee and see what the public is saying and with one of the school board members, so I did that. Then I started calling the school board members because the more I attended, the more questions I had. Then I called our state rep, who returned my call, and we had probably about an hour and 15-minute conversation where I got an education on how schools are funded, what's happening in the state. I asked a bunch of questions about other states and how Michigan compares because of my background, and got a little bit more nauseated because I understood Detroit schools, and there was more issues, and I just, you know, it was getting a little bit too much information. Called our state senator, and, you know, didn't get a call back from him, but I mean, at this point, I've got, you know, a lot of good information. Then I went and I talked to the teachers at Weber and the principal at Weber and wanted to understand their perspective on what's going on. Then I talked to teachers and administrators in other school districts. I mean, I'm doing due diligence like crazy because I'm not sure who to believe, what to believe. There's a lot of information out there. And so once I've gone through that process, I realized, okay, I understand the issues with school funding. I understand the importance of the sinking fund. I love Lake Orion. So now I have a lot of good ideas potentially because I have a perspective as a parent, not deep in the woods as the educator or the administrative staff who's been trying to say, here's what we need to do. And so I started bothering Marion a lot in saying, and she's been great about it, but in saying, hey, we really need the detail. Or this slide that you're doing, I don't understand it. So can you take off a lot of the graphics and can you narrow it down and take it down to an 8th grade level, because I'm just not getting it. And she's done a very good job of that, because I feel like in talking to people in the community, it's confusing,
Right.
and a lot of us don't get the facts. So that was the process to get to the point where I am now. Now, I've taken, along with others, a leadership role in the Sinking Fund Committee, because we realize how important it is. And the biggest issue is getting the message out and doing it in a way where it's factual. Now, I'll tell people, I'd love for you to vote yes, but most importantly, I want you to vote. Have the facts, you make your own determination. I'll tell you my process, I'll tell you where I've been, I'll tell you what I've done, and I'll tell you what I've seen, but it's really up to you. And one of the most disturbing things I've found is that a lot of people don't vote. And we're talking about parents, we're talking about stakeholders, and so the biggest hurdle I see and there's a lot of hurdles, but one of the biggest hurdles I see right now is getting that message out and talking about the facts of here's what's going on and here's what Proposal A. I never paid attention to what Proposal A was. It was my parents' time. But now I need to understand what this is, and I need to understand why these other school districts are passing sinking funds and what it's being used for. And yes, if you're going to be out of town, get an absentee ballot. If you think you might forget to get to the polls and you might not be out of town, get an absentee ballot. If you need to tie a reminder to your finger until the election day, do that, because we had neighbors who no longer live by us, and I promised them I would never say their name. But I am going to talk about them. Last election, they forgot to vote, and they told me that. And I was just like, are you kidding me? So now, they're going to be calling them all the time up to the election. But really, people need to get out and vote.
The benefit, the advantage this time, because we did one of our bonds in August, the advantage this time is that it is an election for other things,
Right.
which helps us, because before it wasn't. It's also no cost to the district, which was a criticism the last time when we had our election in August. We had to pay for that, so that was a criticism. And I understand that. People are saying, wait a minute, you're asking us for money, and you're spending all this money to run an election. So we're being really sensitive to what our community told us before. Someone said to me, why aren't you going for a bond? If Rochester's got 185 million, districts like, what else did you say there, Josh? I don't remember. Some of the ones that shock you.
Yeah, well, Oak Park, Hazel Park, there was Pontiac, right? Just some of the other districts that were able to pass these sinking funds.
So, it's incumbent on us, though. I said, you know what? Our community told us 2 different times, no bond, because we have a lot of debt. The reason we have a lot of debt in this community is this community really blossomed. It really grew probably right after you finished school. We built a new high school, and we built a new elementary school, and we built a new middle school. That all incurred a tremendous amount of debt in the community. Those buildings were built only because of a bond. You couldn't build that with a sinking fund. So because of the amount of debt we have in the community, we listened to what they said. No way are we going to pass a bond with this kind of debt. Right. Now, what we have done is we have reduced the debt to our community members by doing something that we call refinancing a number of our bonds. We've had 3 major refinancing. So that helps a little bit in reducing the debt, and we will see over the next few years some more debt being reduced. So right now, the way that we can take care of our facilities is the most logical, which is the sinking fund. So I hope people understand that.
And I'd like to piggyback on that a little bit. So I have a lot of respect for the fact that they did a sinking fund and not a bond, because there was no question that a lot of the meetings, there was a lot of discussion about this, and so the board listened and was very specific. Something I didn't know until recently is there are anti-tax advocacy groups out there who are well-funded, who don't live in our community, and who will be out at the polls with signs saying vote no. And it doesn't matter what it is. Fire millage, police millage, library millage, school millage. They just fundamentally believe that there should be no additional taxes ever. And obviously I have a different viewpoint on that. What I don't like is that they don't have a stake in our community. Right. And so this is another force that we're against. They will show up to the polls. They will remember. They do not need a reminder. They do not need a call. The folks who probably may not show up to the polls are the ones that, oh yeah, I would have voted, yes, I just forgot, and so forth. And so this is it's a tremendous uphill battle. And I think
or my vote doesn't count.
Or my
Somebody
vote,
else voted,
right. Or I don't know how to vote for the president, and I don't know how to vote for this. And it's like, well, you can decide not to vote on that, but vote for the sinking fund.
Exactly,
and so
because
the
that's in
committee that we're part of, it's really invigorating to see a number of people coming together using, I call it Dragon Pride because I'm, a graduate, but it truly is Dragon Pride, pride in the community. There's a lot of energy, and we're going to get out and we're going to talk to people and so forth. And so from that standpoint, there's been a lot of negativity, but it's great to see this grassroots group come together for a cause and to see the community really coming together. And I think you're starting to get some calls and you're seeing the positive movement and so forth.
Right. And the other thing is that, being aware of a group of folks who are against any kind of an increase in taxes, I have reached out to them. And I will tell you, they are very reasonable. I think that they needed the information. I'm not going to say whether they're going to vote yes or vote no. I do know that I have provided them with every possible piece of information and facts. And what I really appreciated was they asked wonderful questions that we hadn't thought of, which helped us change some of our fact sheets when I met with a smaller group. And I'm most appreciative of that. So I think just reaching out to even small groups of 5 or 6 people, which is what I did with one group, is the key. We need to get into the community. There are homeowners associations. Our board members are stepping up to the plate. It's kind of a tightrope. You have to be really careful what you can do and what you can't legally. But our board members are really clear now. We check things out with our district attorney. Can we say this? Can we do this? So they're stepping up to the plate. They're going out into the community, really supporting many of these initiatives. So
now, speaking, I know you guys have spoke about the pros of this sinking fund. Now, are there any cons that the viewers or the community should be aware of? I think you talked about raising taxes a little bit. Or
it's
going to cost money, but here's what it's going to cost. If you have a $200,000 house that's not valued on Zillow for $200,000, that's the assessor believes your house is $200,000. So typically the assessment is lower than what the house is really worth. So if the assessor believes your house is worth $200,000, I think the cost is $200 a year. That's the downside. Okay. So you might lose a dinner,
But
nice
truthfully, dinner. And I recognize this, there are some people in our community on fixed incomes. So, we say $200 isn't a lot, but for some people it is a lot. Mm-hmm. But you have to understand, we're talking about $300 million in assets of this community that have to be taken care of. So if I live in this community, my vested interest is I want my house value to be good value if I want to sell it or give it to my kids or whatever it might be. So in order to do that, I have to support the schools. Yeah. And I will tell you, I don't know if you know this, Josh, but I think it was about a year or 2 years ago, Chris Barnett, our township supervisor, he conducted a survey, and the survey was really to kind of get a sense from the community of what people thought of the district or of the community of Orion Township. And 2 questions he asked that were very telling. One was, why did you move to Lake Orion? And the other one is, what do you think of the school district? Without exception, well over the majority moved here because of the school system. We have an outstanding school system. We have to maintain it. I look at some of these other districts. Look at Pontiac. You drive through there and you see what's happened to those buildings. The Detroit public schools, I don't want to compare, but I'm just saying, when you neglect your facilities, just like your home, it's really a shame. So
it does. It comes back to that, the ability to sell your house, the days on market, how long it's going to take, is how viable the market is and how people want to move in. The schools are important, but I'll get a little more granular than even that. When we started learning about all these issues, my wife and I, our kids went to St. Joe's for preschool. Obviously, Lake Orion is the public school, and then we were potentially thinking of options of private school. And so we did a little bit of due diligence and just talking to people about the different Oakland County school districts to kind of figure out what's going on. And one individual we talked to who has experience working in all the different school districts, which is just amazing, said to us, you look, your best bang for your buck is Lake Orion based on the taxes. And something that a lot of people don't know is that Lake Orion invests the most in Oakland County in their teachers, in their, I'm thinking of the word, but it's like training and
Professional
development.
Right.
And that bar none of the Oakland, Bloomfield Hills, Troy, Rochester, nobody invests as much. So one of my first questions to the school board members and to Marion was, hey, there's problems, there's funding issues. Are you guys going to change your mindset on this? And the unanimous answer was no.
No.
We really believe it's important. So that's something that a lot of people don't understand or wouldn't get into and so forth. And quite frankly, we found the right person, and so we were able to get that. But that's a big advantage over other school districts in when you're dealing with teachers who are getting cutting edge training, and on top of, their
And winning
training
awards.
development.
I mean,
Right.
the other night, this is just really something that actually, I have to tell you, just still talk about it. On Tuesday night after Memorial Day, we had our Senior Honors Awards night at the high school. And this is a night where our high school seniors come and they are given awards and scholarships. We have 540 kids graduating this year, next week. We have a big high school.
That's huge.
And so of those, we have over 360 kids were granted awards that you would not believe, Bria. It was unbelievable. Scholarships, going to universities and schools that are top-notch universities. I think we had like 170 kids who graduated magna cum laude. It was just overwhelming because we do invest in professional development. We're number 3 in many areas in terms of our achievements, our scores that we receive from the state. We're never below 7. We're right there with Rochester, Troy, Bloomfield, Birmingham. Lately, we've beaten Bloomfield and Birmingham, which is a coup for me. But anyways, my point is, we do invest in our teachers, and that's the key.
Yeah, and so that's at graduation. I'll take it right back down to kindergarten. So my son did not know how to read or write before he started. And he wrote a letter after watching this video about the importance of trees to our neighbor behind us on why they should not have cut down their tree and why the trees are important to the environment. It was a 1 full-page letter, and please do not do it again. Gets off the school bus, asks my wife, I really want to go see our neighbors. They weren't home yet. She calls him, sends him over by himself. He delivers a letter. You see him talking, communicating, going through the whole thing. They read it, they shake hands. And so he was able to articulate an argument, write a letter, and be passionate about something in kindergarten. I mean, when I was in kindergarten, I was learning colors and numbers and maybe letters, And so it's amazing the level. Reader's workshop, writer's workshop, and it shows Mrs. Riddle is his teacher, and she's phenomenal. I'm sure all the teachers are phenomenal in the district, but it shows. There's no question with her professional development and what she's done with these kids and all the different levels, and they're reading, at second grade levels, first grade levels already, and they haven't even graduated kindergarten. It's just phenomenal. So there's no question there's significant value in that.
So to have all that going on and then our buildings are not in good shape really is a travesty. And that's why this sinking fund is really critical.
Absolutely.
Now, to connect this to some people who live in the community that don't have kids, what are you going to do to inform them or have them potentially vote yes or in your favor? Like, what are you going to do about that?
Well, we've been reaching out, as I mentioned before, to some of the smaller groups whose children or whose kids either have been here or don't have kids or never have. We've been reaching out. The board members are going into homeowners associations. I'm going to be going to the township meetings, and those are televised, so you can get information that way. It's hard because we have something called School Messenger, and this is how I push out information to our community. But the people who are part of School Messenger are people who are internal, parents like Josh and so forth. So there's this other whole group out there that are not part of that system. So that is a challenge and a hurdle, but we're working on that. So
the Sinking Fund Committee has an outreach group, and so the focus there is going to be door to door, each of the subdivisions, and having some materials with us to be able to talk about the issues. And most, most importantly, especially like you said, somebody who feels like they don't have a stake in the schools. You do. These assets aren't going anywhere. They're built, they're constructed. So it's our responsibility as a community to maintain them, because if we don't, then there's going to be larger issues, or like Marion said, there's going to be opportunity costs. And so that to communicate, this isn't a bond, to communicate what a bond is, what a sinking fund is. This is a sinking fund. Here's some pictures of some of the issues that need to be addressed. By the way, if you're really detailed, here's everything that's going to be done over what period of time and so forth, and what's budgeted. And just inform them that there's a positive correlation between this and your home value, and please get out and vote and just get the message out. And I would agree, that's the most difficult part, because they're not in the school system.
Right.
Now, on the flip side, it's very difficult for people who are in the school system to remember to vote. And I just can't say it enough, because in all the involvement and everything I'm hearing, and at meetings, it's like we just got to get the people who are, want to vote, and it's frustrating because we're working really hard. And it's just go vote. So you've got those folks who may not be communicating, and then you have the folks who understand what's going on and getting out and voting.
Well, I think what you guys are doing in the community from your perspective and from your perspective is getting a lot of people informed and getting them ready for this ballot that's coming up in August. So I want to thank you guys for discussing this with me. Is there a website or a place where people in the community can go and find out more information?
Yes, www.lakeorion.k12.mi.us.
Okay.
And maybe we can get that across the screen at some point as well.
Yes.
And I would
So-
say, email any questions, email Marion.
Yep.
There's a board email. If you're interested in assisting and want to get involved, they'll know how to get in contact with the Sinking Fund group, because we're just getting started, so we don't have an email address. But definitely the website is a great source of information, and don't be shy. Ask questions.
Right.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for being
Thank you,
here.
Bria. Thank you
you.
on
Thanks
TV
for doing this. I
having
appreciate
us.
it. Marion, thank you for taking
Yeah,
the time.
thanks, Josh.
Appreciate it.
Good to see you as usual.
Once again, I'd like to thank Josh and Marion for speaking with me today about the Lake Orion Sinking Fund. If you would like to visit their website for more information, you can visit lakeorion.k12.mi.us. Again, that is lakeorion.k12.mi.us. Thank you for watching. I'm Bria Brown.